Hello there, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for staying on the AM show. I'm Bernice Abubedulansa. Earlier you heard my colleague Benjamin Akapo having a discussion on what transpired in Parliament on Friday leading into Saturday. Very interesting happenings there. But it's now time for us to move on to our next big story, and it's about climate. And if you're somebody who's been following global events, you understand that climate is very, very important. Right here in Ghana, we have our own share of, the weather taking drastic, having drastic changes to the usual patterns that we know. And, there have been concerns about how climate across the world affects everybody. So this morning, I've been joined by Christina Reka Kavas. She is with the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, and Emmanuel Tichiobing. He is the Acting Director, Climate Change Unit at EPA Ghana. Thank you so much for joining us this morning to have this very, very important conversation. Let me start with you, Mr. Techi, because you're right here in Ghana. And for us as Ghanaians, we always like to localize, make it make sense to us here. What is climate change, and why should we really take it seriously, as the UN Secretary General has intimated?
Yeah, thank you very much, Venice, for this opportunity. As you are all aware, currently climate change has become a global issue just because it's really threatening our livelihood. In Ghana, when it comes to Ghana, we depend directly on the nature, especially the rainfall and temperature. And climate change is really changing the patterns of rainfall and temperature. It means that it's changing our life patterns. And this is the situation which is actually affecting our economy as well, and then the need for us to create awareness on climate change. So this year, Environmental Protection Agency have taken a week aside, and we are starting from today to create awareness on climate change. So today we've made it a day for education. So we are creating awareness on climate change, its impact, and some of the national actions we put in place. Tomorrow we are doing procession from Kwame Nkrumah Circle to Effortland Park. And at the park we'll have a derby where our minister, among other important dignitaries, will address us and sensitize the entire society on climate change. On Wednesday, we'll have what we call the opening ceremony, where our dignitaries will also come out with climate change, and they'll give details for people to understand. And then one thing which is also very important, we have a youth dialogue. So we want the youth to be imbibed into the concept of climate change. So we have a youth dialogue between Ghana and Italy.
Okay.
Yes, so Ghana and Italy will be interacting. This one asking, how is climate change affecting you in your country? What are some of the evidence of climate change? What are some of the things the government is doing in your country? Then Italy also come in and also ask questions, just for them to really understand climate change. It's an early intervention to make sure that their behaviors, their attitudes change in line with environmental actions in such a way that when they grow, they will become future leaders who will be able to solve environmental problems. So we are doing this dialogue on Wednesday afternoon, and then we'll continue with national symposium. And then at the community level, also become very, very important. So we've also chosen Thursday, we'll be at Osu, the Presby Church. I'm talking about Osu Presby Church, Ebenezer Presby Church, where we'll also join hands with the community of Osu, the chiefs, the churches, everybody, the assemblymen, the MCE, will also build the capacity. See, the climate change has also affected the sea level, and then make the sea water warm, which are affecting the ecosystem in there.
Yes. So breaking it down, look, I know some of you believe anything you see on social media, and you warm up to all these conspiracy theories about the weather. But when you step out, you feel how hot the sun is. And for those of you who live in cooler climates, it gets really cold. And these are just simple, everyday evidence of the fact that you're really being affected by all these emissions that, trap heat and, disturb the entire weather pattern. But for you, Christina, your outfit has been supporting the EPA in doing some of these things. Why is this important to you?
Thank you. Well, as both of you mentioned, climate change is one of the biggest challenges of our time. And it has an impact that varies across different sectors, across different regions of the world, countries. So what we do is to support climate literacy, so the development of knowledge and skills to be able to understand what is the specific impact the climate change has in a specific context, and then be able to take appropriate measures and define new solutions. So this is at the core of the support that we provide, and we have been working together with the EPA and the government of Ghana since 2014. The government has first developed a national climate change and green economy learning strategy, so a national document that has a plan for the development of different actions that lead to awareness, education, and training. And as part of the implementation of this national document, we have supported various initiatives. These include the training of teachers on climate change and green economy across the country, with a particular focus on primary schools. The development of teaching materials, so posters and other illustrations to explain to children in a very easy to understand way what climate change is and what solution exists through green economy. And we are also delighted to be here for the Climate Change and Green Economy Week this week.
Yeah, I like the idea of building a certain curricula that helps children even understand these things and the impact to our lives. So what are the real solutions we're looking at? If somebody is watching us and thinking, what do I do that contributes to the unfortunate change in our climate? Because we can also reverse the trend. So what am I doing that is affecting the climate, and what can I do to make it better?
Yeah, okay, let me take it from here. And then since Christina mentioned training of teachers, I want to give the overall activity of what we've done as a country. Ghana, in collaboration with UNITA, have integrated climate change into school curricula. If you look at the current curricula, which is in the system now, Ghana joined us with Ghana Education Service, and then NACA, and then UNITA, and we've been able to integrate climate change. And the children are now learning climate change. We've made climate change very simple and very knowledgeable in such a way that the children will know all the environmental aspects so far as their education is concerned as they grow up. And it started from as early age as class 1. Class 1 people are learning whether the sunny day, the windy day, is climate parameters.
Right.
Cloudy day. But the class 2 people, right from class 2, they are learning what are the things that are harmful to human. So maybe open defecation, that's what they are learning, things that are harmful to the environment. Maybe farming along river basins, even building our houses in water bodies, throwing of waste in water bodies. These are things that are harmful to the environment.
Right.
And we want class 2 people to know, if they're able to know this right away from the primary school, when they grow, they will be even far better to educate their parents, their friends on climate change issues. And then one that is for the science. And one aspect which we also integrate climate change to school curricula is the religious and moral education. We didn't want it to be flat. We really incorporated environment and religious studies, like why God created trees.
Right.
Because if the student know that God created trees for our health, the leaves, you can use it. God created trees for the food you can get from the trees. God created trees for shade, and even for our life, for building materials and other things. The person will not cut the trees just like that. We'll make sure that there will be trees, so there will be food, there will be cool environment which comes from the tree. So why God created trees, why God created ocean. I remember on one of our, he mentioned that we train teachers.
Right.
On one of our training of teachers expositions, one of the case indicated that, why God created ocean? It came out that salt comes from ocean, fish come from ocean, and then transportation come from ocean. These are some of the things was mentioned as indicators of the syllabus. And then the kid said, okay, it means if the salt is coming from the ocean, then if you defecate along the ocean, the salt will go into the the vegetation will go into the salt, and then the salt will come home for me to eat. So that little girl, from that time, realized that it is important that we don't defecate along the coast.
But Mr. Tichi, it's fine that we do this for our young people, but the bigger challenge is at a policy level.
Yes.
Where even, this is not only a Ghanaian problem, let's not pretend. One of the largest contributors to CO2 emissions in the world is the US, right? So let's not pretend that this is just an African problem. But for us as a people, within our own space, we need policy. Because for that young girl who knows that she's just one person for a lot of us. So can you tell us what government is doing? I haven't forgotten my question about how we can individually protect the environment. I'll get you to answer that and reverse the trend we're seeing in the climate. But what should we be looking at as a people, government-wise, to ensure that the right policies are there to support the education that you're giving the children, so that if anybody even wants to be a deviant, the policy or the laws are there to grab them?
Yeah. Since 2014, the government of Ghana has developed what they call a climate change policy. And within the climate change policy, we've also developed the climate change strategy. We call it the climate change master plan. The master plan has all the various sectors. We have 5 policy areas and all the various sectors like the energy, agri, among others, and each of the activities that needs to be done. So government has made all these things explicit, and we are trying to implement them. So we look for funds, and then we budget for funds also from the government, and we implement it like as UNITA is supporting us. So let's take maybe the energy sector. You see, one of the important things that the government wants to do, you know how our Kosovo was affected.
Yeah.
See, our Kosovo used to supply electricity for even Ghana and then the boundary countries. But the time came that even during the dry season, our Kosovo supplied only 30%. And we've gone for doing so over the years. So government brought a policy which we call the solar home systems. This is a system where you can buy, or government will give you subsidy for you to get solar panels on your dream house.
Okay.
In such a way that you can only produce your own electricity for your own house to lessen the burden on the Kosovo Dam. So this is something which is there. Anybody who wants to take advantage, the Energy Commission is there working on some of these things. Water Resource Commission has also been one of the institutions which is also helping us to reduce impact on climate change. They've also come with the buffer zone policy. This buffer zone policy tells us not to farm along river basins, not even alone to do even galamsey.
And I was coming to that.
Yes, so
because that's a problem. We have the document, but like I mentioned, education and policy must go hand in hand. So where there's a policy and the people do not get a sense of the impact of what they're doing, you realize that the policy struggles. Because if with galamsey, I have been doing anti-galamsey since, I think, 2016.
Yes.
It's been a long time, but the people don't seem to get it.
Yes.
So if you have education and policy going hand in hand, then we are likely to see the results, right?
So that is why EPA has allotted this 1 week. The policy has been there. People either don't understand or what. They don't see the impact on their livelihood. So if you look at this year's climate change week, we've made it climate change the threat to our livelihood. So we are going to take the sectors by sectors, water, galamsey, and explain the impact that because of climate change, the water will dry. Even if we don't use it at all, naturally the water will be drying because the atmosphere is warm. So if you are using the water, which is itself drying for galamsey, then the time will come, there will be no water.
No water.
So this is what we want to go down for individuals to understand that there's a situation, warming situation in the system already.
So are we going beyond Accra? Because the 1 week program you mentioned, you said you were going to do in Osu. Do you have offices across the country where they're going to replicate these programs?
Yes, we are joining hands with parliamentarians in various constituencies to also organize debates, march, school march, and anything that any parliamentarian want to want to do within their constituency is also welcome. That's we've discussed.
Okay, quickly, let me just come to Christina. We'll be wrapping up shortly. So, Christina, you've told us about how you are helping children, especially by building curricula, doing research to help them understand in the most basic terms why climate is important and we need to pay attention to it. But for you, what's the big dream, seeing that in other parts of the world, we know people go on massive demonstrations for climate cause, talk about Greta, who's been all over the world talking about climate, such a young, forceful girl. What should we be doing to advance the conversation here in Ghana to make it a bigger conversation that even little children like Greta, young children can say, I want to be a climate advocate and forcefully drive the message home?
Well, I think the example of this week is great. So we have a full week dedicated to climate change and green economy, and it's not the first one. Actually, the first one was in 2016 already. And this provides an opportunity for a lot of stakeholders, from the children and young people, but also we heard from Emmanuel, the parliamentarians, the decision makers, the business sector, to talk and exchange and learn more about climate change. And I think this is an opportunity to really confront about these issues, understand why they are important, and keep talking even afterwards, so that the knowledge spread and also the awareness and the action related to it.
Great. So you have the last word, and that I would ask you to, in simple terms, tell us what not to do to protect the climate, or what we should be doing to protect the climate.
Yeah, let me place emphasis on what we shouldn't do, because that has been a lot, because the policy is there, we don't know what is in. We are making this week trying to explain the policy and make people know what is in the policy for them to do the right thing. So some of the things that they shouldn't do is that I'm stressing that they shouldn't use our water for galamsey. It's key and it's very, very important. Another important thing is also, when we are building, currently, Ghana is very warm, and then the atmosphere is also warm. But if you look at the current building that we are putting up, we use sliding glasses and everything, the room is very hot. We should go back. Or find any means of putting up buildings which will have enough ventilation. That is very, very, very important. That is very, very, very important. And then we should also try learning how to keep our environment cool in our communities, at least in your house. You plant one tree there. Great. Everybody plant one tree within the community. The whole community will become, because trees bring water vapor into the environment. So water vapor all make the place very cool. Yeah. And then they also bring a very good air, the oxygen. So if you have trees, a number of trees within the system is also help reduce. And also management of our waste. We also need to manage our waste well. You know, the heat that moves from when our garbage is decaying, all these things go up there, and then affect the and then also building. People in waterways build their houses. I'm just sending this warning that currently there's climate change. There's extreme events that the rain comes heavy,
yes, sir,
or they don't come at all.
You're right.
And when the rain comes heavy, your house, which used to be a swampy area, and you fill there, you have to know that the rains will come heavy and take the entire houses. So this is also very, very, very important, that we should know where to build. We should not build on waterways, because that will help us to make sure that we keep our environment and then we keep.
I really appreciate your time here this morning, and I couldn't help but think about how, and this is a conversation I was having with some of my colleagues, when you drive towards Ibri, the weather changes.
Yeah, completely.
Instantly, Accra is just too hot, and I think it's largely because we've cut down all the trees for buildings, and so it's a very important point to raise. Everybody says that as you drive outside Accra, it gets cooler. Get to Kumasi, where it's greener, it's cooler. So for those of us who step out, and I felt it this morning, even though we are in the rainy season, the sun has been so scorchy, and we are all complaining about it, but you've heard the solutions. You've heard it. Let's begin to practice them and be an advocate for climate change. If you see your colleagues doing the wrong thing, tell them, don't do that. You are hurting all of us in the long run. And like he said, I don't know if you've been following what's happening in Mozambique and other parts of the African continent where there have been cyclones and people have lost so much. There have been mudslides. A woman couldn't find her daughter-in-law. And it's so sad when you watch these things on television. And it's because we, humans, are destroying the environment. What an irony when we were given the environment to protect. I think it's time we change our attitude. So please follow the EPA on social media. Get acquainted with all the programs. You can be a part. And anybody who's willing to invest in climate, the EPA says its doors are open. Thank you so much for joining me once again. Christina Reka Covers is with the United Nations Institute for Training and Research. They've been supporting the EPA and Ghana in especially building education policy for young people in understanding what the issues of climate are. And Emmanuel Techiobing is EPA Ghana Acting Director at the Climate Change Unit. Well, it's now time to get interactive with you. Benjamin and I do so shortly. Do stay.